Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Women's AM. This morning I am joined by Sister Hannah, Nusrat and Layla to discuss mental health. So far it's been a really interesting discussion, but we would love for you to call in and share with us whatever your personal experiences are. So please call in, the number is on your screen, or tweet us at Islam Channel #WAM15. So continuing on with where we were, I was just about to ask, what impact does the state of one's mental health have on one's on the individual and as a collective, Sister Layla?
It's a bit of a tricky one, and it's complex as well, because someone that's suffering from mental health, it's going to affect not only the individual, like you said, but their family, their friends and everyone. I mean, one of the severe cases that I've come across, it's not the most severe, but it's one that is quite concerning because it happens all too often. There was a sister that, subhanAllah, she'd been a victim of abuse, and she did kind of speak to her family about it because she was very depressed. The sister had been self-harming. The best way her parents could deal with her is to get her married off to someone from back home. Now, this issue, the fact that the sister's already going through something traumatic, she feels violated. To her, being married, it's going to violate her even more. But this is the community's answer to dealing with the issue by brushing it under the carpet. What's happened to the sister? She's still self-harming. She's having problems with this marriage because she doesn't feel connected. And again, subhanAllah, she's left. She has left this brother. And the thing is, it's not the brother's fault. From what she said to me, he's tried to be as understanding as he can be. But then not only because the situation wasn't dealt with correctly, it's affected not only her, but her family and the community, because that's who they were worried about the most. But again, it does affect someone. And if like you say, if you're happy, the people around you are going to be happy. If you're sad, it's going to impact everyone around you.
I think it's a shame that sometimes we do tend to fall into, brushing things off, trying to hide it under the carpet, because we tend to think of, oh my goodness, what are the community going to think? And it does have a massive impact, because I'm sure for those parents, it hurt them to see that their daughter, had been violated, and perhaps it hurt them even more that, maybe the marriage didn't work out as they were hoping it would have, maybe, sorted everything out for her, but it hasn't. So it's really sad to kind of see how things are just, instead of dealing, it becomes a bigger problem.
Brushing the issue under the carpet does not solve it. It's kind of like, for example, ignoring the fact that there's an alarm clock going on. Just by putting snooze, it doesn't help. But I think the individual impact that mental health when in decline does have is that we have low self-worth and confidence, and upon that happening, you'll find that the person tends to have always be ingrained in negative thoughts. Those negative thoughts can result in them, yes, self-harming, doing other things as well, but also their socialization and interaction. You'll find that they're more reclusive, and because of that, they become, I guess, in their own cloud of actual misery, which doesn't help. Now, particularly if that mentally ill person has to actually is actually like a breadwinner, or is in a role of responsibility, particularly in the context of children, that's going to have an impact on the child, because we find that many children actually, particularly when their parents are hospitalized, take on the role of being a carer. And particularly when you are young, it's a lot of responsibility on you, to the point where role reversal happens, and it creates confusion. For example, research according to the American Academy of Children and Adolescent Psychiatry, and this was actually in America, children of parents of mentally ill, children of parents with mental illness are at risk of developing mental illnesses themselves, particularly if both of the parents are mentally ill. And if you have anxiety, depression, this impacts on the child. And I think Jamie Byrne, who's actually wrote a publication for Friends for Mental Health in Canada, even said that because of this role reversal, children are actually confused and end up actually in later life having these kind of difficulties, because they don't know what it's like to experience their childhood. They don't know how to respond to when their parent is bipolar.
It's a case of having to grow up very, very quickly, and I think you see that a lot as well in this country. They've, mashallah, there are organisations set up to help young carers who are looking after their parents for whatever reason. It might be because of a disability or because of mental health issues, and it's sad that that this is the case. And I think this is where the community needs hands to kind of step in, you know, whether it's relatives or people that just live around them, to kind of help and alleviate, you know, that kind of burden, because it's difficult for a child. I mean, children are going through a lot of, you know, life-changing processes, and for them to have that on top of it, you know, of everything else, it's very, very difficult.
I mean, bipolar is not the most severe, but it's equally as hard, because especially if you know, for mothers, I've known mothers that suffer, that do have bipolar, or that are bipolar, sorry, and what you'll find is that one minute she'll be happy, she'll be, you know, the best mummy in the world, the next minute, you know, stay away from mummy, I'm not, you know, the best person right now, I don't want to speak to anyone, I hate everyone, you know, and it's just that complete, like, change of character. And for a child to understand that, it's extremely difficult, and for a partner to understand that, or parents to understand that, it's difficult. You know, one minute I'm happy, one minute I'm sad. Don't ask me why I'm sad, don't ask me why I'm angry, just leave me alone, I'll calm down on my own. But what we need is people to be more understanding. They brush it under the carpet, not because they're scared, it's because it's a lack of education, it's their ignorance, you know. And this is why it's important for people to understand it more.
But I think sometimes it can come down to maybe, you know, if you don't admit that there's a problem, then you can kind of go on believing that everything's okay, because sometimes it's a self-preservation thing. We don't admit that something's wrong, because if we do, then that means that we have to try and fix it. And sometimes fixing it can seem like a very, very hard thing to do. You know, taking the steps to try and address an issue can seem like a very, very overwhelming thing to do. I mean, an aspect that we haven't discussed yet is, you know, the effect, you know, that sometimes children can suffer from mental health issues. You know, you get children who seem very, very angry, or who seem very, very sad, or who just, you know, very anxious. We don't like to admit that children get stressed. We think, oh, well, they're a child. Why would they feel stressed? Everything's fine. They get to play. They don't have any responsibility. Everything's okay. But Hannah, what would you say about this?
No. I remember in some of the research I was reading, there was an article that parents overestimate the happiness of their children sort of under sort of 11, 12 of that age, and they underestimate the happiness of teenagers, because I think it's just about, you know, society stereotypes that teenagers are moody and their hormones and blah blah blah, which is all true, but I think again it's about, like you're saying, admitting that there is a problem sometimes where there is, and, you know, seeking the relevant help, and, you know, working together as a family, as a community, having that support
because
network.
sometimes it's even more difficult to realize that maybe your child is suffering from mental health issues. You know, you see them as you think that they're just being brats, you think that they're just acting up and they're just being silly and things like that, and you don't realize that maybe there's something a little bit more going on, you know.
That's why it's important. That's why I think it's important to even have that kind of talk with your children regularly. How was your day, sweetie? How did you get on? Is there a friend that you made? Having that constant bond really does help, because they'll feel open to want to talk to you about it.
Yeah, or if they're angry a lot of the time, sometimes it can come down to the fact that they don't know how to verbalise. They don't know how to verbalise what it is that they're going through, or what's making them upset, which is unfortunate. And I think, like you said, it's making that time to talk to them as well. But how can we improve our mental health? So especially when it comes down to stress and depression and anxiety, what are the things that we can do?
Well, the best advice that I can give anyone, first and foremost, is to put your trust in Allah. That's the first. And the second thing is to surround yourself with people that is going to boost your iman. Because the thing is, and I know this from personal experiences as well, when you're suffering from any form of mental health, even from depression to schizophrenia, anything in between, your Islamic knowledge and your iman,
It'll help ground you. I think
it will help ground you completely.
But I think it's really important as well, like you are the spokesperson, mashallah, for an organisation that helps people to go and actually search for professional help, because sometimes, you know, it might not be enough just to have positive people around you. You need practical steps in moving forward. Sisters, last bits of advice that you can give to any viewers at home?
I'd say coordinate with your doctor and research about these kind of issues. It makes it easier to understand what's going on as well. Integrate them into society and always make them feel loved. I think that's very, very much needed, and obviously you should have trust in Allah.
Yeah, I think as well, you know, subhanAllah, everything, you know, that everybody else has said, and this whole discussion has been very productive, but having that tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, Allah says in Surah Sharh, verse 5, you know, inna ma'al usri yusra, after hardship comes ease, really believing in that, trusting in that, you know, obviously making sure that you don't lose that bond and connection with Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, definitely, you know, surrounding yourself with people who will aid you and help you as well. You know, where professional help is needed, we'll make sure that you get that.
But even to admit, you know, that sometimes you need help. We don't like to admit that we need help. We like to believe that we can do it all, we're okay, we're going to get through it. And sometimes that is the case, we can get through it. But it's okay to seek out help.
Oh, definitely.
It's okay to seek out help, because at the end of the day, we're human, you know, and this life is not perfect, and we're not perfect. And alhamdulillah, with Allah's help, in whatever way that manifests itself, we should try and take that. So jazakallah khair for that, sisters. Mental health and the issues surrounding this is something we should not be ashamed to discuss. Rather, we should look at raising awareness and engaging in dialogue, as well as means of helping us find ways to not only help those affected, but combating misconceptions and ensuring the holistic mental and spiritual balance of society is dealt with. For those going through difficult times with fluctuating mental health, it's not easy. However, we are comforted by the divine words of Allah that you're not alone, and through this difficult time does come ease, where Allah has mentioned, verily with the hardship there is relief, i.e. there is no hardship with two reliefs, so one hardship cannot overcome two reliefs. So this is from Surah Ash-Shahr. I pray that you've benefited from this discussion and that advice from the panelists has been of help to you. And don't forget, if you've missed any of today's show, all is not lost. You can catch up with the highlights from this week on Sunday at 3 p.m. And of course, you can catch up with the episodes on YouTube. So here are the details on that.